This last letter is perhaps the most disturbing, and the reason for that is because the individual who reached out to me is underage, and the things that they are telling me about are just incredibly upsetting. The toll that would take on somebody's mental health and physical well-being later on, you will see. But let's go ahead and read this. This person requested to remain anonymous, but they didn't give me a name, so we'll just be calling them G. They said, "Dear Rebecca, I am a 17-year-old and an 11-year student from an Opus Dei school and have been affected because of my contact with this organization. I joined the school in 2011 at the age of 7, and not being Catholic, I was to pray to Opus Dei more than God, which was something that even my parents didn't even notice. As a young child, we were given a lot of homework so that the only free time we had was in school, where we were being reformed. 1 or 2 years later, they began brainwashing my parents with how they should not give us phones and that they should delete my social media accounts. By the age of 11, my so-called tutor, who had my parents separate a lot of my non-Catholic friends, which at the time I was not aware of but later found out about, realized that they were trying to change me. My tutor encouraged me to spy on my classmates, which made me uncomfortable. I began to realize that we were being trained to be submissive, and that if anyone did not do as instructed, they were given a detention, an hour after school where we were given punishments like standing with our heavy bags for that 1 hour. We were encouraged to fast as an offering to God, even though we were under the age limit for fasting. Some of my classmates began to have eating disorders, and our teachers didn't even look worried. But why would they be? Some of them were Opus Dei numeraries. By age 15, we as students were forced to go for Mass thrice. And I don't know if she meant by this thrice as in 3 times a week or 3 times a day, but I noticed that a lot of the mental health of my classmates was deteriorating due to the workload and the brainwashing we received. I also noticed that only Catholic students were enrolled, and maybe a few non-Catholic and Muslims who were told not to wear the hijabs even during their religious holidays. My parents, still under the school's brainwashing, enrolled me in high school. That was where it got worse. We had a compulsory lesson of religious education where they taught about the Catholic ethos under the Opus Dei version. Any objection during the lesson by a non-Catholic was reprimanded immediately. In high school, we were forced to be more involved in the Opus Dei traditions like retreats, which at times made me uncomfortable. We were not allowed to join drama festivals like other schools, and school activities which we did attend were kept under a tight leash, where we weren't allowed to interact with students from other schools, and we had acquired the name Barbies. If only they knew our struggles, they would leave us alone. A parent came forward about how her daughter was not admitted because she was a single parent, and our principal signaled that children of single parents are too broken to be fixed. We were also instructed not to talk to any press about it and not to post about it in our social media accounts. There are several instances where I found my classmates crying because of the workload and the sleep deprivation it had given them. Our teachers watched us like hawks, which felt like an invasion of my privacy. We were on several instances verbally insulted for the oddest reasons, like having a second piercing, being told that they were from the devil. Later on, when my classmates expressed their own problems with the institution, we concluded that the problem was with the institution and not with us. I will be finishing my academic year in 2022 and finally leaving this place. So there's a lot in here. The first thing that I want to talk about is Opus Dei schools. Not really something that I've gone into a whole lot yet. At some point it will probably become more relevant, but Opus Dei will either fund or directly run a educational institution. In fact, I just saw a news headline from the UK, and if I can go back and find it, I'll post it up here, but I don't know if I'll be able to, about how a mysterious, well-funded organization bought this school in the UK that was going defunct, basically. And if you read through the entire article, it became very clear that the mysterious organization was obviously Opus Dei. This is something that they do, and I believe that they do it for many reasons. These schools tend to be very prestigious. They tend to attract a certain type and class of person, and it's essentially a recruiting ground. If you can get them while they're young, raise them up in Opus Dei, you have a fresh, ever-renewing crop of people for the organization. It's pretty sick if you think about it. A lot of the time, parents, I think, unwittingly get involved in it, not realizing what it is that they're getting their children into. This is something that I actually talked about quite a while ago in my video about Opus Dei violating its members' human rights, which I'll link if you haven't seen it yet. But It's definitely a trend that I have noticed many, many times, and everything that this girl told me is the same thing that I've heard mirrored from other people. The extreme workload that is put on these people, whether we're talking about numeraries in Opus Dei centers or students in these schools, the insane expectations, the very subtle pressure to do things like spy on each other and blackmail each other, the eating disorders, that is something that I have heard quite a bit, enough that it makes me very, very uncomfortable, gives me quite a bit of concern. All things that I have heard before, and the fact that this is somebody who is underage, who has been in this for so long, I shudder to think of the toll that this is going to take on them throughout the rest of their life as they move on and try to get space from this thing. The one thing that I will say that I think is a positive and a silver lining is that she has managed to recognize what it is that she is involved in far quicker than some people who are involved in Opus Dei for decades. She has woken up and realized that she's not the only one who is experiencing this, that the issue is not her, it's with the institution. And not only that, but it's her and several, if not the entirety of her class, which can only be a good thing. The biggest issue with people coming forward, I think, with Opus Dei, or even acknowledging that what they went through was wrong, is the fact that Opus Dei places people in a very isolated environment. You are in an organization with tons of people, but you are isolated. And any issue or problem that you have is a sign of bad spirit, and it's always your fault, and you're the only one who's having the experience. This is something that we've talked about many, many times, and it's classic cult behavior. So she knows, she woke up, she sees what she's going through. That gives me hope. G, if you're watching this, I hope that you get out. I hope that you get distance, and I hope that you realize that none of what has happened to you, none of the things that you've been exposed to are your fault. It's a result of this organization and its decisions, not anything to do with you and not anything to do with your parents. Your parents have been just as brainwashed as everybody else, and I have no doubt that they are probably very good people who just wanted a solid education for you, and this school was probably their best option.